The year was 1984. About an hour's drive from New York, in the township of Livingston, New Jersey, life had all the simple joys and frustrations of middle-class suburbia. Straight out of a Norman Rockwell painting. While the older kids hung out at the many local pizza places, the younger ones spent afternoons at the playground behind the high school. And right next to the playground was Littell's Pond. In the winters, when it was cold enough, many of the locals gathered there to ice skate. That year, Ghostbusters was the biggest hit at the local cinema, the Colony. Yet the real talk of the town was Darren Prince, who'd built a business buying and selling collectible baseball cards, and in the span of 6 months, had made $100,000, all at the age of 14. From the outside, it was a great local boy does well story, a hard-working teenager with a head for business who had achieved the American dream. It was all true, of course, but behind it all, Darren was keeping a deep, dark secret. Something even those closest to him didn't suspect. A crippling addiction that would come to consume him. But before it did, he'd build and lose an empire. Much like he had traded on those famous faces on the front of each baseball card, he'd come to meet many of those legends in real life and eventually make his business trading on the fame of sports legends in real time, wrapping greats like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Dennis Rodman. But even though this wonderkind turned celebrity sports agent was incredibly adept at keeping it all together, eventually it would all fall apart. Sit back, relax, grab something cozy to drink, and settle in for the story of an amazing man whose search for redemption led him to a life of service, helping others overcome their own demons. And find out why my interview with Darren Prince was the first to bring me fully to tears as we sat together on the pink couch at the W Hollywood for this conversation. Today on the Gratitudeology podcast.
Will you walk through the fire? Would you ride through the storm? Will you walk on a wire? Will you save me if I fall? Will you break through the madness? Set us down where we're safe. I'll be right here waiting till you find me again.
In the glamorous and competitive worlds of sports and entertainment, there are few more powerful than the agents. The ones who pull the strings behind the scenes, broker million-dollar deals, those who can make or break careers. And as agents go, there are few more powerful than Darren Prince, whose Prince Marketing Group has represented some of the world's biggest celebrities. And okay, I'll admit it, I don't follow sports and I don't know all the players. So when I had a high-profile friend suggest Darren as a podcast guest, I had to look him up. And when I did, I was a little intimidated. I mean, not only had he repped some of the biggest stars in sports that even I had heard of, he repped some heavy hitters in the current entrepreneurial and badass personal development space too, including one, Mr. David Goggins.
Your brain is the most powerful weapon in the world.
I was a David Goggins stan for sure. And let's be real, David has made a career from being one of the hardest guys in the game. In case you haven't heard of David, he's a former Navy SEAL turned author and international speaker. He basically eats nails for breakfast and runs Ironman 100Ks with a weighted vest for fun. So I was worried that Darren would give off those scary vibes too. What I encountered instead was what we call a mensch. A teddy bear, a sweetheart, a kind soul with a crazy story. And I was here to listen to it all. thank you so much for joining me on the Gratitudeology podcast. It all kind of started for you in Livingston, New Jersey.
Yeah.
So you grew up kind of with low self-esteem.
Yeah.
I understand when you went to summer camp, you found a way to deal with that ended up kind of changing things forever for you. Tell me about that.
So I was 14 and I had terrible stomach pains one night, and the counselor took me to see the nurse. And she gave me one of those clear cough syrup cups with this green liquid. No idea what it was. I took it. It tasted terrible. But within 30 seconds to a minute, as I'm walking across the softball field, my life changed forever. That green liquid introduced me to the world. And I got back to the bunk. I felt like Superman. I was talkative. I was confident. I was funny. People were laughing with me, not at me. I even flirted with girls in the bunk next to me. I never had the urge to do any of this. And I went to bed that night, really thinking nothing of it. Did all the activities the next day. But my dis-ease was alive and well the next night because I was tossing and turning in my bunk bed thinking, how can I get more of whatever that green liquid was?
That green liquid was Demerol, an opioid first approved in 1943 to ease acute pain. Today, over 100,000 deaths a year are caused by opioid abuse, but back then, no one was aware of how addictive it truly was. Even without quite knowing why, young Darren must have sensed something was wrong because he consciously tried to conceal the problem.
I learned how to lie and con at 14, put the crocodile tears on.
I've always said I needed a cocktail at 4. Like I was just predisposed to be an addict. Do you feel like that was your path just from...
I look back at some weird other things that I did. Like I remember being 10 or 11 and being in the village with some friends and their parents, and I snuck into the head shop with a couple of my boys, and I bought this little liquid Rush tube that I didn't know if they make it anymore, and you would sniff it. I remember hiding it at that age in my locker, so when people weren't looking, and I'd get a nice little buzz for 15, 20 seconds, but you don't really know what it is. You're just feeling good, and I would have to leave it in my locker because I was always nervous to bring it home for mom and dad to see what I was doing. So that same year when I was 14, so I had 4 different jobs, from squeezing orange juice at a supermarket called King's, working the stock room at a sneaker store called Masco Sports. I worked at a pizzeria called Calabria's, and I worked at a diner called Don. So I would take all that money. At that point, baseball cards weren't cool anymore. And my friends just wanted to date and party and do their own thing or buy stupid stuff. So I would buy everybody's collections. But not only was I buying their collections, I would get what was the Wall Street Journal of baseball cards back then, something called CCP. Only OG connectors know what CCP is, Current Card Price Guide. And it would come once a week. I would pay to express ship it because I would notice the value of my cards fluctuating up and down and study the trends. And so I would give them the Don Mattingleys, the Roger Clemens, the Wade Boggs, the Tony Gwynns, the Darryl Strawberries, the Dwight Gooden, because those were the popular names. And I would trade for people named Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, Willie Mays, these older, dirty-looking, smelly cards that were around for 25, 30 years that they were given to by their grandfathers, their uncles, their fathers, because I knew they had incredible value. And I developed a business that I had an inventory of about $9,000, told my dad what I wanted to do. He thought I was nuts, so he challenged me.
Darren accepted the challenge to show what he could accomplish in 2 weeks. He set up a table for his business and ran an ad in the local paper to buy, sell, and trade baseball cards.
And I went in those 2 weeks for I was training for a heavyweight title fight every day after school because I wasn't the best student. It was all about setting up my display. I was splitting the table with Steve Simon, who is one of my closest friends since I was 10, who's actually the vice president of Prince Marketing Group now. That's how far we go back.
Oh my God.
My agency. So he went in with his $10 to just have fun and hang out. I went in because I had a feeling that this was going to be big, and it became a big family affair, especially, us Jews. Grandma came, grandfather, my mother. I was up at 5 a.m, getting all dressed and, just so ready to attack this. And my dad had a typesetting and design company with a direct mail coupon company called Dollars for Shopping. I don't know if you remember that. It was like Valpak. So his art people laid out the most perfect sign, got there early, set it up, and first time in my life I felt alive, not being high. I was stone cold sober. People were coming to me for advice. They were asking about prospects in baseball and who could be a good rookie. And I felt like I was finally somebody of importance. And I wound up making over $1,000 that afternoon on a Sunday. So I did another one and made over $3,000 that weekend, buying, selling, trading, flipping, and I was sitting on the inventory for about 2 months because I wanted to slow roll it out, max my money, give them a nice return in case I needed to do it again. But during that time, I'll tell you something that was funny. I get stopped in the hallway by a young man named Mike Schwartz that I went to high school with. And he's like, hey, I saw an article on you in the Westchester Tribune about what you're doing with these baseball cards. My grandfather passed away. And he left us these really old tobacco cards from 1910. And apparently they were put in tobacco packs. Now, any collectors that are listening, that's the Honus Wagner era. And so he bought 1,800 of them over my house. And I cut a deal to buy them for $5 a piece for $9,000, but I didn't have the money. So my dad pulls me aside. He goes, are you 100% sure? I said, Dad, I'll get $20, $25 a card. It might take me a little bit. He's like, oh boy, because this is a lot of money. He goes, I mean, think about this. He saw me make $5,000 in 2 weekends, but now shelling out $9,000. So he goes, if you tell your mother, she's going to kill you and she's going to kill me. I'm going to take it out of your bar mitzvah fund, but it's got to go back. Can you pay it back in a month? I said 100%. Yeah, that collection made me over $100,000 over the next 4 to 6 months.
You heard that right. At the age of 14, Darren made over $100,000.
And it wasn't like I just flipped it the next day. It took time. You got to know the trade shows to go. You got to know the collectors, the investors, because Dad was very big on integrity and making sure that your reputation's the hardest thing to uphold and the easiest thing to lose, and you only get one chance. So along that journey, I would publicize myself. I'd get a lot of great media. I was in the USA Today at 18. Reggie Jackson bought his rookie card from me at an iconic show in Tropicana in Atlantic City in 1989 that all the 500 home run hitters were at. And this reporter, Mel Amsonen, came over, did a huge story on the front page of the sports section, and the business just exploded. At that point, I was in college. I more or less dropped out because it was the last thing I was thinking about, and I had a .86 GPA my freshman year.
So now what lit you up? Business was what lit you up, and you had a head for it, but what's so interesting is, first of all, the fact that you did all this before the internet, like, blows my mind.
I had a cell phone before anybody.
Did you really?
It was called Bell Atlantic, 1986.
Was it one of those big ones?
And it had a leather case, and the phone cost me $3,000. My dad went absolutely crazy the first month when he saw the bill come in. But then he started looking at the checking account and said, okay, try to teach me about expenses, because that was one thing I struggled with for a very long time, understanding the value of money, because it came to me so quick at such a young age.
Darren was rocking and rolling. And like pretty much any teenager I could imagine who had an extra $100K burning a hole in his pocket, he used it to have some fun.
So I would say probably from 14 to 21, I partied like a rock star on the weekends. A lot of times it was by myself too. I would just stay at home and do whatever I did, and opiates, weed. It was dangerous. I would have friends buy me like Percocets and some Vicodins on the street, and Xanax and Valium, and I was the party guy. I would provide the drugs because I had the money, and I just more or less felt these were real friends. But let's face it, anybody that's been down there, I was buying my friendships. I wanted the external validation of these people thinking, wow, Prince is the best. There's nobody more fun than Prince. He takes care of everything too. And I would say probably up until the time I was 21, no repercussions, but it all hit the fan. Right after my 21st birthday, I was arrested 4 times in 6 months with possession charges. And not to distribute, because I was either meeting friends, going to someone's house. I got pulled over. I was at the Allman Brothers concert. I was holding the bag of drugs. But I never once looked at myself. I never thought I had a problem. I just thought it was such bad luck. How does this happen? I'm taking care of my friends. I'm employing 5 of them. This is ridiculous. And the judge thought otherwise. He put me in a outpatient program at St. Barnabas Hospital called the Alliance. And he said if I get in trouble during that 1 year of probation, I'm going to prison for 6 months. So I did everything I had to do. Stopped everything. I got the good news about 2 weeks before the year was up that the counselor told me I was done. And the judge signed off, and he's very proud of me. Make sure I do the right thing and don't make the same mistakes. So my best thinking, call up my friend Dave the night I knew I was getting out. I said, hey, bro, I'm done. Let's go to the city and celebrate. Let's go to Jimmy's Cafe, do some mind eraser shots and have a good time. He goes, heck yeah, man, Prince is back. I mean, you're not thinking anybody has a problem at that age. So we did these mind eraser shots, took a handful of Xanax, and the night went so well that Dave's car on Highway 280 fell in a ditch. My face went into the windshield, and you could still see him to this day. I had 95 stitches in my face, scar in my hand, massive concussion, glass everywhere. The first two people I saw in the ICU when I woke up in the recovery room with my mom and dad. The night I was released from the outpatient program with tears rolling down their face. Because as I tell people, addiction doesn't just destroy us, it kills everybody else around us. And I didn't think I had a problem. You know, I had to live with them for a month during the healing process. And eventually when I got back out to my own apartment, I just started up again.
But in the course of restarting his business, 2 separate incidents inspired him to level up his game. A chance meeting with the agent of one of boxing's biggest icons, followed by a golden opportunity at a fan convention.
Around 1990, I started a new venture through my card company, Prince of Cards. We were doing autograph signings for Muhammad Ali, who I got in through a mutual friend with his agent, Harlan Winter, who's a dear friend. And after it went so well with Muhammad, there was a woman by the name of Gloria Rothstein, and she used to run the biggest card collectible conventions. And I saw one time there was Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, and I'm like, it's incredible. The line is wrapped around the corner. Like, what's going on? I put 2 and 2 together, and I realized people fly in from everywhere. They can get all their stuff signed that they've treasured forever. They could get photos with them. So now as somebody that was so-called learning disabled, socially awkward, had a sense of external success, but not internally, I was like, how cool would this be? I get to hang with celebrities now, and I get to like book these autograph signings for them. So the first person I thought it was the biggest name in the world was Muhammad Ali. And my buddy hooked it up. I did the signing with Muhammad 3 months later, a bunch of boxing gloves, trunks. I write about it in my book, Aiming High. It was an incredible day. And I was like, this is great. I'm done with the card business. This is more profitable. It's so much more fun. And I did that up into, I'd say probably around 94, 95. I did a soft launch on my agency. But what happened was I got in trouble. I got in a lot of legal trouble that I write about in my book.
And if you really want all the juicy details, you can check out his book called Aiming High, available on Amazon. But hey, we've got him here with us, so let's hear the story live, baby, because it's a doozy.
I was investigated for selling a bunch of fraudulent Michael Jordan autograph memorabilia. So I get a call one day from the FBI in Chicago on a Sunday night, and they said they wanted to pay me for my time as an expert in the industry to fly to Chicago and look at some signed memorabilia to let them know if I feel it's authentic or not. So I'm my ego, oh, this is great. I'm writing a column for Tough Stuff, which was one of the biggest collectibles magazine at the time. I'm getting paid every month. People are looking at me as the guru of that market. And the next morning, I thought they were calling to book a flight. The assistant to the federal agent asked if I had an attorney. So at that point, I was like, oh, something's really weird. So I had my attorney call. And he goes, you got to bring me with you. I don't know what the heck is going on. How well do you know the guy that you've been buying this stuff from? Like, he's like family. I've been dealing with him for a year and a half. He comes up once a month. So I called the guy up. He's like, man, they're trying to get me on tax evasion. I know what's going on. They got nothing on me, man. They got nothing on you. You pay me by check every time. It's clean business. Don't worry about it. Just go do what you got to do and come back and let's get back to business. So during the interview process, they asked me, was there ever any issues with fraudulent claims on the memorabilia? I go, why would there be? It's authenticated by one of your own FBI forensic document experts. Why would he be authenticating all this stuff with certified, notarized certificates of authenticity? Took a lunch break. I come back. They had my phone lines tapped in my office in Union. for, I guess, about 3-4 months. And one of my sales reps was on the phone with an attorney from Hawaii a year after he bought a Michael Jordan signed ball, complaining that he was told it was fake. I had Muhammad, Magic, Smoking Joe Frazier, Dennis Rodman at the time. Every one of them sent letters to the judge about my credibility, but it ruined me financially. So my dad, again, because of integrity, I started sending refund letters out to everybody that I knew before sentencing, because I knew it was the right thing to do. And oddly enough, not everybody wanted a refund. They just decided to keep it. And first time in my life, I'm borrowing money. I'm severely in debt. I get charged with making a false statement to the FBI, which was a felony charge. And I'm on probation for 3 years. And I take my last $3,000 after this was done. And I take my dad on a fly fishing trip in Alaska, because that was our favorite thing to do. And an old school Jewish guy, he did not want me spending the money. But I knew that we needed it. And on that trip, I believe that's why Prince Marketing Group was born. Because we're out here on this beautiful stream fly fishing in a boat. And he goes, fella, what's your next move going to be? You think you're going to go back to the business or do something else? And I'm like, Dad, I don't know. You know, I want to be an agent. I think I really could do it, but I don't have 8 years to go to law school. He drops the fishing pole. I remember the conversation like yesterday. He goes, law school? He's like, life is about who you know, not what you know. Think about the relationships. There's not an entertainment lawyer in the world but wouldn't love to be in your position, because I think Magic is your biggest guy and he's always loved you and respected you, and I've been around him enough. I think you should tell him your vision next time you see him. So we were in Michigan a few weeks later, and Irvin, I call him by his real name, I went into his hotel suite to make sure he was ready for an event. We had to go to an autograph signing event. And it's almost like you would have thought he spoke to my dad, because he's like, how you doing? He goes, you coming out of it? He goes, I knew you'd be okay. I was like, yeah, Irvin, it's tough, but I don't know if I'm going to go back to the business. And I said, I want to be an agent. I want to do the big stuff. He's like, boy, you really got to get a big client or two out of the gate. Who you thinking of? With that big $1 billion smile, and my hands were sweating. I was so nervous. It was one of those moments in life. I was 24, 25 that I'm like, I got to get it out. I got to say it now. And I was like, I was hoping it'd be you. And he puts his hands on my shoulder like this, and he goes, look, he goes, you know how much I love you and your family. He goes, you made a mistake, and I know what it's like to make a mistake in the public eye. This was a few years after his HIV announcement. He goes, but always remember, God tests great men and great women, and you're going to make lemonade out of lemons. He goes, I'm going to give you 2 years to do this, but if you don't use me to knock down every door to bring in every celebrity you can to your agency, I'm going to fire you before the 2 years is up. And I'm looking at him like, why? He goes, because life isn't about how successful I become, Darren. It's how successful I make you and everybody else around you and me, so then you can pay it forward to other people. And I just cannot believe that I was sitting here broken, beaten, defeated, broker than broke. And one of the kings of the world was basically telling me, go out and exploit them. And it's exactly what I did. I went to every client after that, and I go, hey, I'm starting an agency. I got Magic. I'd love to add you to it. We're going to do keynotes. We're going to do commercials. We're going to start focusing on all this big stuff. And that's how Prince Marketing Group was born.
Unfortunately, his addiction still had a hold on him. And speaking from personal experience, it's usually when you think things are going great, when you think you're invincible, that you feel like you can indulge in anything and get away with it.
This is what my sponsor always told me. She's like, you know, addiction's fun, then it's fun with problems, then it's just problems, right? Before we get to rock bottom, there's got to be some really great stories of these early days. I'd love to hear some of them. You had such great clients.
So what happened was, I do a lot of speaking, as you know, and I always say, I think what was once living to use turned out to using to live. The first 4 or 5 years of Prince Marketing Group, I was a rock star. Didn't matter what it was, where it was, what event. People just gravitated towards me. And when I'm on top of it, if you're there with Smoking Joe or Magic or Ali or Chevy, you're with the alphas of the alphas, the legends of all legends. So it was so easy networking with other stars and brands and agents, and we would co-agent deals, and they'd ask, hey, is it possible I could bring you opportunities too, and split commissions and stuff like that. So I just built this incredible network. But I remember the day that it stopped working. because I saw morality clauses, I stopped the illegal drugs when I started Prince Marketing Group, but I legitimately had sciatica, so every doctor would give me opiates. I never knew what oxys were, but I started taking Goggins. And I was with Smokin' Joe, may he rest in peace, Frazier, in Dallas, and we were going to a corporate event, and we were up in the room, and just like I always do, I chopped up a little 10 milligram oxy, put it on my hand, and snorted it, and just checked my nose out, make sure it was good, and I went downstairs with him. And normally it took 5 or 10 minutes. I didn't feel anything. I feel anything 30 minutes later. Now I start sweating. I'm like, the heck is going on? Like, do I take another one? Like, my superpowers, it felt like it was kryptonite. From that day, I can never, ever reclaim that feeling. I wound up just taking and taking and taking to not get dope sick, to just numb. Started mixing it with everything you could imagine, from alcohol to sniffing Ambien at night to Oxycontins to Percocets. And I had my first major overdose in 2006. I was in Vegas at the time for NBA All-Star Weekend. And Dennis Rodman, we did a TV show deal with Mark Cuban called Geek to Freak. So we had an event that night. And I had a horrible case of bronchitis. So I called the doctor to the room, gave me a prescription for Tussionex cough syrup, which is an opiate-based cough syrup for people that don't know. It was my favorite. And 100 Vicodins and some antibiotic. So I go to the pharmacy. I'm married at the time. I call my then wife. I said, do me a favor. Call room service, get me 3 vodka Red Bull and cranberries. I'm going to go out tonight. I'm going to make it. I get back to the room, half a bottle of Tussionex, chopped up 4 or 5 Vicodins, snorted them. Down went 2 of the drinks. I'm thinking I'm fine as I'm getting ready. And all of a sudden, the dizziness, the palpitations, the sweating on my head, I fall down to the ground. I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like my heart's popping out of my chest. My then wife clearly panicked, called 911. All I'm doing is look up at the sky. God, don't take me. I don't know what the hell I just did. I'll never do this again. And paramedics came up, oxygen mask on my face, needles in my arm, EKG machine. I woke up at 3 in the morning, bags under my eyes, I'm bloodshot. And I go into the bathroom like, you sick bastard. I'm literally talking to myself like, what is wrong with you? How you're on top of the world in your career. Who does this? And with that, I opened up the top of the cough syrup, finished it, and I chopped up 4 more Vicodins, snorted them, and I went back to bed thinking it was the vodka Red Bull and cranberry that caused the overdose. And that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Yeah. So I went back to New Jersey that week, got my first moment of clarity, went to an addiction psychiatrist, told him what was going on. He put me on Suboxone. That was only supposed to be for a couple of weeks. I stayed on it over a year. But I lied to him too. I mean, who doesn't go to a psychiatrist and lie to the psychiatrist? That's what I did. Still drinking. I'm taking Xanax, taking a mood stabilizer, an antidepressant from another doctor that I didn't tell him about. I lived in that hell for probably about 14, 15 months until my God moment happened.
Imagine, for a moment, the turmoil of having an outer life that spelled success with a capital S. Darren's Prince Marketing Group was raking in over $200 million in deals, arranging memorabilia appearances, endorsements, not to mention TV and movie deals, with some of the biggest names in the business. And yet, inside, there was a void that was only growing bigger, eating at him from the inside out, that he thought he could drown out with enough drugs and alcohol.
I knew I was sick and tired. I knew I was at the jumping off point, but my ego was too big to go to rehab because here I am, this so-called super agent with this crazy life, and I can't do it. The business won't survive without me. So it was July 1st, 2008. My late uncle Stu and his then girlfriend Andrea, they paid me a surprise visit, and she walks in. They surprised me to my condo. I never met her before. She says to me, "Are you okay?" And I opened up to the strange woman like I never did before. Tractor beams. And I told her everything. And she's like, "Do you realize you're an addict?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Do you realize you're powerless?" I said, "I do." And she started pointing at all the pictures on the wall of me and Ali and Magic and all the superstars and all my accolades in the business. And says, do you realize this doesn't mean anything? None of it, because you don't mean anything to yourself. And that broke my soul. And I started to cry. And she goes, it's okay, I can help you. Do you want help? I said, yeah. And she reaches into her pocket and shows me a 5-year silver coin that she just got 2 weeks earlier. And she was my savior. She said, I could help you, but you got to do everything I tell you to do. So she put me on a detox plan, and about 36 hours later, it was July 2nd, on a Sunday night. I was living at the Caroline Building in New York City with my then wife, and came back from the gym. I'm trying to work out 3-4 times a day, sweated out of me. And I just couldn't do it. I get back to the apartment, I called them up, I said, I can't freaking do it, I'm calling the doctor. I got to get what I really freaking need to get. And they were back in Florida now and said, this is the goddamn disease talking. My uncle's yelling, put your damn ego aside already and surrender. Go to a 12-step meeting. I said, I can't do those stupid 12-step meetings. I've been there when I was 21. These people don't understand my life. Forget this. And I hung up the phone. Ran into the bathroom, locked the door. Simone now thinks I'm going to overdose again. She's panicking, hysterically crying, banging on the door. Baby, don't do it, don't do it. And I'm going through all the medicine cabinets to find some non-narcotic anxiety pills to ease the withdrawal symptoms that she told me I was okay to take. And out came 2 extra strength Vicodins out of one of the bottles, which was bizarre because we literally spent an hour the day before cleaning out every medicine cabinet and flushing it down the toilet. So that seemed like my spiritual awakening for a split second. I fell to my knees for the first time in my life. They were in his hand, and literally shut my eyes. I'm sitting here like this, and I scream out to God, take the money, take the business, take the notoriety. I need a single day of freedom. If you take me out of hell, I will spend one day at a time the rest of my life taking others out with me. And I had a white light moment that I never had before and I never had since, because this shoulder caught fire. I'm deaf in my left ear. I recently had a cochlear implant here. At the time I didn't have it. I hear in my right ear, I've got you and you're ready, as loud as can be. And I stood up and I flushed the pills. And I go into the living room. I Google 12-step meeting. There's no Uber. I go downstairs. I found one in the upper 80s at 8 p.m. And I'm in the cab on this gorgeous summer night looking up at the sky. Holy crap. The first time in my life I wanted to stay sober, whether I wanted to get high. And I walked in to a church basement with 150, 200 addicts and alcoholics where I once felt hopeless state of mind. And I heard the leader say, is there anybody new coming back or sick and suffering? And in front of a room full of strangers, I would say, I believe God raised my hand that night. And I said, I'm sick, I'm broken, I'm suicidal, and I've got so much to live for. And I don't know how to stay one day sober. And about a dozen spiritual brothers and sisters came over to me, literally right in the middle of the meeting, and were hugging me. They taught me about the 5 A's: attitude, adjustment, accountability, acceptance, and action. They told me, don't worry if I don't get the program right away, because if I keep showing up, the program's going to get me. The one that blew me away was when they said, we're going to love you before you ever learn how to love yourself.
Sometimes it really takes hearing those words from people you know have been through the same pain you've experienced for you to start listening. Because perhaps for the first time, Darren felt heard. And so he himself heard and changed.
How do you stay living in the solution today?
Living in the solution for me, it's more about the spirituality part of it. Because, I think for the most part, if there's not a health crisis, we've got luxury problems in life. So what, the deal didn't get done? So what, the flight got delayed, or the weather's bad and the trip got canceled? You're supposed to, as long as your kids are healthy and happy, as long as your family members, your loved ones. So for me to stay in the solution, it's always about that shift to understand that, I've got luxury problems. I have to stay in a place of gratitude as much as possible. I got to meditate. I got to pray as much as possible. I have to stay in the middle of the 12-step fellowship. I have to raise money for my 501c3 to scholarship people, because my big mouth could get me in trouble if I don't watch it. My sponsor, Steve, God bless him, he's got 37 years, old school Italian guy from North New Jersey that, I did time in prison and came out, and he saved my life and said, we find people like you dead. Money, notoriety, recognition, and power. Because you want to make it? I said, of course I want to make it. He told me this after 1 month. Word for word, he goes, lose the fucking ego. Because you ain't shit but a stone cold fucking junkie. And I felt everything said. And the crazy thing is, like, I never forgot it. I don't mind telling myself that. Because the business stuff, that's what I do. That's not who I am. You know, Magic, Hulk, Rick, Charlie, Jerry West, all these guys, Dominique Wilkins, they've accomplished extraordinary things. I happen to be a great networker, people person, negotiator, where I just happen to work my way in. I'm nobody special, I always say, but my God is. And I believe in saying what you mean, meaning what you say, and don't say it mean. And you don't need to be into recovery to understand that. So I try to stay in that place of service as much as possible. I try to understand people instead of me being understood, like the 11th step said. I also, in the heat of an argument, I know that I can't control other people, but I can control my... So much better to feel all right than right. Because in 10 minutes, if you don't open up your mouth or send that text, you're not going to know what you were angry about. Get out of your own head and be of service to other people, not just in the rooms of recovery. We all know plenty of friends and family members and coworkers and acquaintances that are struggling. That's what you do to get out of your own head. It's the quickest fix. It's everything to me, because everything else just falls into alignment. Because if a deal works out or a situation works out, great. And if it doesn't, it's great, because you've got the most important thing in the world, and you got a shot when you wake up sober each day and when you go to bed sober. And it's so true, because God always has different plans for us than we do. And I mean, look, I've been through hell and back in recovery. And just because we get sober and throw out the drugs, it doesn't mean life just, oh my God, gets amazing. No, you got to do the road work each and every day. I can't stay sober on yesterday's sobriety. And, you know, I've been through the loss of my father, Muhammad, Joe. I've had clients pass. I've had 2 dear friends pass in the past year and a half. One couldn't get this gift. I brought him to meetings. I tried getting involved in the program. I've had surgeries. I've been sick. I've been through a divorce in recovery, a broken engagement, broken relationships. But none of it is an excuse to ever go back to that life. And I've learned to be so comfortable during uncomfortable times by staying in service, by being kind, by doing whatever my routine is. And there is sometimes that I need to be selfish for me, so I could selflessly then give to the universe. So I will say no to interviews. I will say no to, you know, speeches, whatever it might be, if I know there's a week or a time that I just can't do it, because I need to protect my own peace. And there's too many yes people I've also seen in the fellowship, and I know a couple of them that aren't around anymore. Yeah. Because nothing is ever worth going back to life. I'm not afraid of relapsing and dying. I'm afraid of relapsing and living.
Well, Darren, I can't thank you enough. I mean, you got me. I've done a lot of these interviews recently, and I don't think anyone's like gotten me all teared up, but I just felt it because I've sat in that seat, and I appreciate you.
I think I said to you when we spoke on the phone that we're going to cry some happy tears.
For sure.
That's this beautiful thing in the world when, you know, you can come out of hell and the darkness and the lights come on, and then you could do the same for other people.
And that's exactly what Darren has been doing. He became a representative for Banyan Rehab Treatment Centers. He's opened his heart and soul in front of so many others, speaking to kids in high schools, those still in recovery, and to us today, to share what he's been through, if only to show anyone and everyone what he failed to recognize when he first started hiding his addiction. What he knows now, that no one is ever completely alone. Today, Darren lives in that gratitude, and it makes his business success all the more meaningful. And that, my friends, is what it's all about. You can follow Darren on Instagram at agent_DP and check out his book, Aiming High, How a Prominent Sports and Celebrity Agent Hit Bottom at the Top. That's all for today. Remember, if you like what you heard, if it impacted you in any way, and if you think it's a message other people in your life might like to hear, I'd be so grateful if you'd give me 5 stars, leave a quick little comment. Those things really help. And share this podcast with your friends, either on social media or just word of mouth. I'm on a mission for us all to help each other focus on expanding our attention towards what's good in the world rather than focusing on what's bad, one person at a time. If we all did that, even to our own little sphere of influence, the world has the potential to be a much more radically awesome place. Stick with me, friends. I've got your back. We're in this together, and it's a great day to see the greatness in the day. See you next time. The Gratitudeology podcast is written, executive produced, and hosted by me, Jamie Hess. Sound design and studio production by Gotham Production Studios. Our theme song is Maze by Hills, sung by Nadia Ali. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Gratitudeology.
Will you walk through the fire? Would you ride through the storm? Will you walk on a wire? Will you save me if I fall? Will you break through the madness? Set us down where we're safe. I'll be right